by Yayoi Kusama, who is a Japanese pop artist. Let's take a look.
My name is Yayoi. I'm an artist and I'd like to tell you my story. I was born in Matsumoto, a historic city in Japan with a beautiful castle. I've always loved drawing more than anything else in the world. When I was a little girl, I carried a sketchbook with me wherever I went. I drew everything I saw. I would sit in the meadows between the flowers and plants and see things around me that other people didn't. I rushed to draw them in my sketchbook before they disappeared. I used to dream of becoming a famous artist. I longed to fly away to other countries where artists were doing exciting new things. So when I grew up, I decided to leave Japan. My mother didn't want me to go, but I was determined to make my dream come true. I got on a plane and flew to America. I arrived with a suitcase full of drawings and some money I had hidden in my shoes, but the money soon ran out. With nothing left to buy food, I went to the market to pick up scraps. I would find fish heads and cabbage leaves that had been thrown away, which I used to make soup. At least it was something. I lived on my own in an apartment where I painted day and night. I painted hundreds and hundreds of dots onto large canvases. The dots often came off the pictures and ended up on my dress, table and walls, but I wasn't sorry. Each dot was a part of thousands of others. They made me feel like I was a single dot that was part of our infinite universe. I was making lots of paintings, but I was poor and alone. One day, an elegant lady came knocking on my door. Her name was Georgia O'Keeffe. She's another famous artist. And she was famous American painter. I had written her a letter asking for her advice on how to become a successful artist. She wanted to know how I was and offered to help me sell my artwork. She introduced me to her art dealer, who immediately bought one of my paintings. Wow! I continued to paint a lot of pictures, and soon I was ready to put on my first solo exhibition in New York City, and it was a success. I had more and more exhibitions and more ideas for new works. I made soft cushioned shapes, which I used to fill rooms, boats and shoes, and cover couches, armchairs and hats. I covered bags and dresses with dried pasta and filled rooms with glittering balls and lights. I created mirrored rooms which reflected everything over and over again. I also organised performances that I called happenings, where I covered people's bodies with dots. It was a pretty daring thing to do at the time. My art was starting to get noticed and written about in the newspapers, so I decided to try to change the world for the better. I organised a happening on the streets of New York to protest against the war in Vietnam. I covered lots of men and women in dots, and they handed me out leaflets with messages of freedom and peace. But it didn't last long because the police came and arrested me. No war, love and peace. No war, peace. As soon as I was released, I started working even harder than before. I held other happenings. I made films, I published a newspaper, and I created unusual party dresses. Some had big holes cut out of them, and others were made for two people to wear together. That sounds like a great idea for a party. We could do that with you, get a giant t-shirt.
I can see your tummy. I can see your butt.
I'm going to get a giant t-shirt and put it on YouTube. I even made a huge dress that could be worn by as many as 25 people at the same time. I want to go that way, no, I want to go that way. They all have to go together, wouldn't they? left a bit, right a bit. I need the toilet. Oh no. I loved creating all of this new experimental art, but there came a time when I had to stop because I became unwell. I left New York and went back to Japan to get better. Back at home, I saw the beautiful mountains and the cherry trees in bloom, but a lot of things had changed since I left. The meadows and streams that used to inspire me to draw had been built over, and the cities were filled with smog. This made me sad. Then one day it snowed. The snow covered everything and transformed the landscape, turning it into something pure and beautiful, just how I remembered it from when I was a little girl. Oh, I'm seeing those dots again. Circles. I found a studio near the hospital I was staying in and started working. Creating art made me feel better. I also began writing. I would paint during the day and write at night. Although I missed New York, I decided to stay in Japan. It's where I still live today, and I still work non-stop, making paintings, writing books, and designing clothes and other objects. And the other thing I love to make is pumpkins. I've always loved pumpkins with their beautiful shape and sweetness, and I want to show all the love I feel for them through my art. I also like to cover them in, you guessed it, dots. You won't believe it, but I picked up a pumpkin when I was a child and it talked to me. My artworks have become really famous, and you can now see them in many different art galleries and museums around the world. My dream has come true. And there's a little pumpkin saying, "You did it!" Because she thinks pumpkins speak to her. And there she is.
Yayoi Kusama loved pumpkins. She even thought that they talked to her. We're gonna get started on our art project with polka dotted pumpkins. For this project, you're gonna need a blank piece of paper, black marker, crayons, and a pencil. Step 1, we're gonna sketch out our pumpkin. So we're gonna start in the center of our paper. Let's take our pencil and we're going to sketch the middle shape, so the center of the pumpkin. I'm gonna do mine with a little bit of a skinnier top than bottom. That sort of a shape. Then I'm going to come off of each side with additional shapes that mirror the outside. So something like this. We're gonna go up and around. And we're gonna do another one. Up and around. See that starting to take shape? Let's do the other side. Now let's do a stem in the middle. We can come back in and color that later. There's our pumpkin shape. Next, we're going to outline our sketch. Next, it's time for the polka dots. So take your black marker and you're going to start with small circles at the top that lead to bigger circles in the middle at the bigger bulging part of the pumpkin. So we're gonna make our circles and we're gonna color them in. Don't just poke the paper. We're going to actually make dots and color them in. Looks pretty cool, huh? Now that we have our center row of large polka dots, we're gonna go off to the side and do smaller polka dots. Let's get started. Now we're gonna do the same thing all over again on each segment of our pumpkin. final row of dots in here, following the curvature of the pumpkin shape. I have to say, this looks pretty cool, just like it is. I actually really like the black and white color scheme. You could leave it like this. Or if you want to keep going, now we're going to color the background. I like to do a quick color, just a light shade over an entire segment of my pumpkin first. Just make it light. Next, I like to get a little closer to the edges and darken the pigment. So make the color a little bit bolder. Kind of adding some dimension to our pumpkin, because a real pumpkin is curved, right? So the center would be a little bit lighter. Again, we're making the edges a little bit darker after we go over the whole section. And then it's lighter in the middle. Looking good. Let's keep going. This picture is ready to go just as it is. However, if you want to do something a little bit more, here's your next step. Grab your scissors and let's cut this pumpkin out. Okay, now we're actually going to make another pumpkin. So we have our first one cut out. Let's make one a little bit smaller. So you can use your first one as reference, but then let's put that to the side. Now we're ready to color. I'm gonna use green for my pumpkin. Why not? And then I'm gonna use the color purple for my stem color. You decide. Be creative. Remember, this is exemplary of pop art, so lots of bold colors, lots of fun. On your piece of paper, find the midpoint, and then we're going to go a little bit further down to a third. So we're going to segment off this bottom half. Draw a line. You can freehand it like I just did, or you can use a ruler. So we have two portions now to our backdrop here. On the bottom portion, I'm going to do some geometric shapes. So I'm going to start off by cornering this section with a triangle. And then from there, I'm going to take off and I'm going to do another abstract shape. And then from there, I'm going to come off and just keep drawing lines. Everywhere you see that you can make a line and another shape, that's what we want to do in this section. Now I'm going to color in my shapes. In the top portion of your background, you're going to create some more polka dots. Fill them in with a fun color. I chose purple. And for the remaining area of your background, choose another fun color and fill it in. Now that your background is finished, you're going to glue your pumpkins on top of it. I just love how this turned out. It is so fun and so whimsical and so reminiscent of Yayoi Kusama's pumpkin art. Have fun creating, everybody. I'll see you next time.